Hey everybody, this is Justin, aka Retro Rhythms. I thought that since so many of us are stuck at home during the pandemic that's taking place, I would share a little bit of my collection with fellow fans, maybe engage in some discussion if you're interested. And I decided to focus on the Jackson family. I'm not an expert by any means, but I have collected records by many of the famous Jackson siblings over the years. Not so much Michael as many people do, since he's the megastar, but some. And I'll present, in addition to that, some of Janet, LaToya, Marlon, Randy, Jermaine that are in my collection, and Rebbie, of course. How could I forget? Because she's the main one that I've actually interviewed at length, aside from Tito, who vinyl-wise doesn't really have solo stuff, just a CD that a couple CDs have come out in recent years. Anyway, let me get to it. See how much time it takes up for YouTube standards. Starting with the 1973 solo album by Jackie when he was still with the Jackson 5. Not a big hit, but some cool tunes in the same general vein. Much later on, he had his Be the One album, which included this moderate R&B hit, Stay. Funky track, nice cover there. And I like a couple of tunes on that album, actually. And then let's get to Janet. She's a lot of people's favorites. I'm going to do 12 inches first, then I'll move to 45s if I have time. This is her first album. I loved this as a young child, especially the song Young Love, which Renee and Angela produced and wrote, I believe. Leon Silvers did production on the album as well, like on Come Give Your Love to Me. This is the 12-inch single for Say You Do, which was the, I believe, third single released from the album. And then moving into her sophomore era of Dream Street, the first single, Don't Stand Another Chance, which her brothers wrote and produced on. And she promoted that on Soul Train and several other shows, I think. Here's the album itself, featuring the title cut, which she sort of did a video for via the TV series Fame that she was starring in at the time. And this 12-inch of Fast Girls has a non-album track that Jesse Johnson produced called French Blue. I don't know how well you can see that. Not one of her strongest songs, but it's a curiosity, I guess you could say. Skipping ahead a bit into the Rhythm Nation era, one of my favorite songs from that album, in addition to Come Back to Me, is Love Will Never Do Without You. Of course, it had a timeless video as well, but I just love the groove of that song. And then jumping more than a decade ahead, a track from her 20 Years Old album, Call on Me, featuring Nelly. And there were several 12-inch pressings of this with different mixes from different countries. I like the picture sleeve 12 inches, and so this is from overseas because there wasn't one, I don't think, in the United States, or it might have been different. And then going ahead, I can do everything here, but the Unbreakable album from 2015, which I guess didn't really get a lot of exposure. It seemed like after such a long wait for the comeback due to other circumstances in her personal life, kind of got shortchanged a bit. I know a lot of people were disappointed when it had been announced that she was going to be recording a video for Burn It Up with Missy Elliott, and then that never surfaced. But some cool tunes nonetheless. Jermaine, who I think in many ways is perhaps the most talented of the bunch because he's multi-instrumentalist as well as songwriter and producer. These are some of his early Motown albums, some which were recorded after the Jacksons left Motown for Epic and he stayed on as a solo artist. This one, Come Into My Life, and a disco-oriented one, My Name is Jermaine, featuring the hit Let's Be Young Tonight. I didn't open this one ever. I just like the fact that it was sealed when I found it. But usually I do open the records even if they're sealed just because I mostly get them to listen to, but there's that collector part sometimes that won't open it. Another one, Feel the Fire. Michael McGlory is a musician who produced a lot with him on some of these albums. Frontiers is one that I liked a lot. Trying to remember if, well, Let's Take a Trip to Tomorrow was a really good one. He does a remake of I Love Every Little Thing About You, the Stevie Wonder track on here. think it's this album simply titled Jermaine from 1980. Um, so let's see. It's too much to try to fit it all in here, but anyway, some really quality tunes on here as well. And the album I Like Your Style. Um, and then we have um, jumping way ahead for him. Actually, sorry, never mind that. Not so far ahead yet. The Let Me Tickle Your Fancy album, which was a collaboration with Devo on the title cut. Also a great single called Paradise in Your Eyes. And another one called Very Special Part. This is a promo 12-inch of an extended mix. And Motown used to do, I think it was sort of budget priced Superstar series where they would compile just 8 or 9 tracks of artists that had been on their label for a while. I think they did one on Thelma Houston too. Um, so let's see, moving into his Arista years, sort of the pop crossover with Dynamite and I Think It's Love, which Michael Omartian produced. Really strong tune, I think, in Do You Remember Me, which is also from that same album. And then the album after that, Don't Take It Personal, included a very nice slow jam produced by Dave Pitt Conley, Two Ships in the Night. And then he moved on to the LaFace label, where he had more of an up-tempo focus with the song You Said, You Said. This is the vinyl from Germany, I believe. It wasn't released on vinyl in the States, but it is a good album. Sounds Like a Lover's Holiday and Secrets were non-singles that are really cool. And a great single, I Dream, I Dream. Pretty much, I think I'm saying this right, his last commercial single in the United States. I know he's had albums and singles overseas in the subsequent years. And then we have to do some LaToya. I know a lot of people think of her as a novelty, but there's a lot of great music in her catalog. That's the first album. The second album, called My Special Love, is probably my favorite. Ollie Brown did a wonderful job producing this. In addition to the single Stay the Night, which was originally recorded by and co-written by Billy Ocean with Ken Gold, songs like Fill You Up and Love Song are great up-tempos, and then for mid-tempos, Camp Coochie Kai and Summertime with You. Camp Coochie Kai, which she co-wrote with Janet, and I believe Janet sings on it, I'm not sure. And then even the ballad I Don't Want You to Go, which was a remake at the time. I don't remember the original artist, but the late Allie Willis co-wrote that. And LaToya performed that on Soul Train, and it's just a beautiful song. Going into her next phase, which was with well, it started with Lark Records, then it transitioned to Private Eye. But Bet You're Gonna Need My Lovin' is a great tune with Amir Bayan doing the production chores. And let's see here. The album, Heart Don't Lie, included the title cut featuring Howard Hewitt and Musical Youth. It's the US 12-inch. And then the album itself, which also featured tunes like Hot Potato, which was the follow-up single. Probably should have been more singles from it, but I don't know exactly what was going on the business side with that. She did a collaboration with the great disco artist Cerrone called Oops Oh No in '86. I'm not sure if it came before or after her own '86 album entitled Imagination, which is such a delectable serving of pop candy with an R&B twist to it. He's a Pretender was the single that was first released from it, and High Energy, the Motown group, had originally recorded it. The title cut, Imagination, was also a single, but by that time Private Eye had folded, and her record was transitioned to CBS Associated, and they really didn't promote that album. There were no videos from it, but I mean, even songs like How Do I Tell Them and Boys Got Something Girls Ain't Got and Weak Spot were just so campy, but just so good. Anyway, then going into her involvement with Stock Aitken Waterman, initially released overseas, you can see the change in her look, clearly going for the Michael vibe there, with Ain't Nobody Loves You Like I Do. A cool tune, not really my favorite, but I know a lot of people are very fond of it. This was heading into her LaToya album era, which had a lot of producers. Full Force did a lot of the songs on it. Stock Aitken Waterman did several. And who else? Harold Faltermeyer did a wonderful track called Turn on the Radio, which really should have been a single. And then Bobby Hart and Dick Eastman produced one song, and Steve Harvey did the great club tune "Does It Really Matter." There's the 12-inch from overseas of "You're Gonna Get Rocked," which was the song with the video in the United States that was promoted. And then she went into, I guess, what many consider kind of her low years, just personally and music-wise, but nonetheless, the Bad Girl album. This is the original vinyl issue on Sherman Records. Um, does have some really catchy pop tunes. Clearly, she was not as at the forefront vocally. There was a lot more background support, and you can see that if you ever see her Reno concert from '89. A little bit of a mess, but still interesting to watch. Um, and subsequently, she had some other efforts that were mostly released overseas. This tune, "Why Don't You Want My Love," very much in that kind of soul to soul groove. And then the No Relations album, where she didn't even use her last name, and it was kind of, I think, I don't know if it was the exact time that her book came out, or tell all, where she was kind of writing off the family. But the main single from this was called Sex Box, and there was a video for that. Definitely not the top amongst her tunes, but Let's Rock the House was another track that was released as a single. And then, fast forward more than a decade, she resurfaced. Her album Starting Over never really was released in full. Like a decade after it was produced, she released some of the songs as an EP to tie in with her second book of the same name. But Just Wanna Dance, which was originally sent to DJs under the guise of Toy, so that people wouldn't judge it by it being LaToya Jackson. Just a really cool dance tune, and I mean, it's really too bad that it wasn't really commercially released. Free the World was the follow up. I'm not as crazy about that one, but it's cool that there's vinyl on LaToya from that era. Okay, Marlon Jackson, because he only had one solo album, is not talked about as much. But this is a song called "Let Your Love Find the Chosen One," which is from the soundtrack of the movie The Golden Child, The Golden Child, starring Eddie Murphy. And I really like this tune. I don't think it was released on a 7-inch. And then some more folks will know his jam "Don't Go," which, let's see if I'm doing this right. Yeah, he did the music and lyrics and produced it, with co-production by Winston Johnson and Fred Maher. Wayne Edwards was the executive producer from Capitol Records. But anyway, "Don't Go," really great jam, great video. I mean, I in some ways think dance-wise, I know I don't hate, but I mean, more natural moves in some ways than Michael, like in some of his stuff. Like maybe it's just a different style. I guess I shouldn't say that, but sorry. He was awesome. The dancing in that video, even in "Baby Tonight," but especially in "Don't Go." I don't have, like I said, a lot on Michael. This is the recent picture disc release of "Off the Wall." I thought that was pretty cool. Um, and then the Dangerous album, which I did buy as a kid growing up. I really was not into Thriller growing up. I love a lot of the songs from it, but the video totally freaked me out, and it was following me everywhere at that time because it was so massive, and I couldn't take hearing it. But anyway, Bad I did like, and then Remember the Time, which is a great Teddy Riley produced New Jack Swing jam from the Dangerous album. And then Jam, another cool single from that album. There were 8 singles released from that, all told, I believe. And then here's one of the other recent picture disc reissues. This is of his last real studio album, Invincible, from 2001. It was released on vinyl originally, but I didn't get it until I realized it was available, but being sold at very high prices. Rebbie Jackson, and the one who I inadvertently forgot for a moment at the beginning, but who, I mean, I guess because she's her own entity, she's so different in a lot of ways. Her story, because she's the eldest, and she escaped a lot of those trappings, I guess, that we associate with the others anyway. But Centipede, obviously, her album did feature the title cut written by Michael and featuring the Weather Girls doing notable backing vocals and ad libs on it. And then one of the let's see, I'm trying to keep these in order, but I might not be able to totally. Anyway, we'll get to it with the 45s. Her second album, which is a signed one here from when I first interviewed her in 2001 at her Las Vegas show, Reaction. This is from '86. Dave Pitt Conley did a lot of the production on this. The late Reggie Lucas also produced on it. Title cut. I mean, Rebbie just had such bad promotion. There was no video for that Reaction, and even the follow-ups to her Centipede, like Fork in the Road and Play Me on the Jukebox, no videos. Virtually no TV promotions that I'm aware of. I'm sorry, that was the 12-inch of Reaction. This is the full-length album, which is also signed, but I don't know if you can make it out with the plastic layer. And this is like one of my favorite things. I ultimately got to do liner notes for reissues of those two albums on CD that were put out in 2012 by Funky Town Grooves. But one of the things that, I don't know how well you can see this, there's a picture of it in one other post I have on my channel, but it's a test pressing of a 12-inch for Ticket to Love. As far as I know, the single was not commercially released. One person told me they had seen a 45. I've never come across it, but she did promote it on several shows at the time. And so this is like a really heavy, almost glass kind of pressing, which several of the mixes, that's what I was going to say, were included on this expanded edition of Reaction, but not all of them. So that's like a special thing for me. And then from that album, which was the only one with a video, can't see that well as You Send the Rain Away. This is a promo 12-inch. It featured Robin Zander from Cheap Trick. And then her final 80s album was Are You Tough Enough, featuring a lot of backgrounds by the late Gwen Guthrie. Again, Pitt Conley doing a lot of production. Bernard Jackson duetting with Rebbie on Friendship Song. And this is the 12-inch of Plaything, which I so loved the Soul Train performance. She did that. Another great dancer, really natural. And this was the title cut featuring Melly Mel. It's really not one of my favorite songs from the album. I don't know why it was chosen as a release, but it's a great picture. Are You Tough Enough? And that was it. And then she was done with Sony until she rejoined via Michael's MJJ label with the Yours Faithfully album, which is not released on vinyl, but this is the promo 12-inch of the title cut featuring a dance mix and a hip-hop kind of mix. So let's go to the 45s.